Good day, it's Althea from the Bible in 1 year. Today we spend time in 1 Samuel 5 to 11. God directs your steps. He stays in control no matter what. God's presence comes from a close relationship with Him. In chapter 5, the Philistines took the ark of God when they looted from the Israelites and placed it beside their chief idol Dagon. I guess if your custom is to make your own idols to worship, then you don't mind taking another god from any other nation and put it in your temple to worship it as well. A series of events happened after this. The Philistines encountered God numerous times. Their own false gods could not stand in the presence of the ark. They became dumbfounded. They were bothered with a plague of mice, and the people was struck with tumors. Some even died. God was against them for 7 months. In Leviticus 10, we read about 2 of Aaron's sons that died in the presence of the Lord because they did not follow the specific instructions of God. Verse 3 read, "This is what the Lord said, I will be treated as holy by those who approach me, and before all the people I will be honored." God is a man of His word. He gave the Israelites very specific rules to live by regarding the ark. Now that the Philistines crossed the line to take for themselves the ark of the Lord, the same rules applied to them. And God dealt with them in the same way as with the Israelites that acted unworthy. In verse 4 we see that they knew that the punishment was from God, and they also knew that they must bring a guilt offering before the Lord. They followed the instructions and returned the ark to the Israelites. In chapter 7, Samuel teaches the Israelites the way back to God. They were defected in their own minds and hearts. They believed that God had abandoned them. They did not know or realize that God's presence comes from a close relationship with Him and not the presence of the ark. Samuel teaches them and us how to turn to the Lord. Firstly, turn to the Lord with your whole heart. Secondly, remove the foreign gods in your life. That is all that stands between you and God. Then, direct your heart to the Lord. That is to focus on the Lord and to serve Him only. In return, He will rescue you. No sooner had they returned to God, and the next attack from the Philistines is at hand. This time, God fight for them and not against them. For now they too stood in relationship with God. Samuel inquires the Lord for help, and they won the war. In chapter 8, we see that the sons of the priest did not walk in the same way, serving the Lord as their father did. Therefore the Israelites turned their eyes to the surrounding pagan nations, comparing themselves to them. We want what they have. A king will solve our problems, they thought, instead of trusting God to solve their problems. From a distance, the grass always looks green and more abundant. But when up close, you notice there is also manure lying around and crickets eating away in the grass. Being ruled by a king looks appealing to them, so they ask Samuel to appoint a king over them. This was not God's will, because in verse 7 we read, "For they have rejected me from being king over them." In essence, again they turn away from God. God's perfect will for them was for Him to be their king, but they were not interested in that. God instructed Samuel to spell out the consequences that come with His permissible will. Samuel explained that having a king will bring other problems. The king would take a lot from them, and they will have to serve the king. Verse 18 says, "They will cry out because of the king, but the Lord will not answer because you rejected him as king." Nevertheless, the people refused to listen and said, "There will be a king over us, so that we too may be like all the nations around us, that our king may judge and govern us and go out before us and fight our battles." This is exactly what God did for them as king, but they were blindsided, looking around, comparing to others. What is astonishing to me is that God worked everything in place up to the small detail for the first king of Israel to be appointed, even if it was not his perfect will for them. Romans 8:28 read, "And we now know with great confidence that God, who is deeply concerned about us, causes all things to work together as a plan for good for those who love God, and those who are called according to his plan and purpose." A series of events took place in chapter 9 and 10 to execute God's permissible will to appoint Saul as the first king of Israel. First, Saul's name means "ask of God." Israel asked, and God provided. Saul and his servant did not have this admirable relationship with God. Therefore God led them with donkeys straight to the prophet Samuel. Samuel, on the other hand, had a great reputation of knowing and serving God. Samuel was no fortune teller, therefore he did not charge for his services. But the courtesy is to bring a gift. Unknowingly what they will encounter on the way, the servant did pack silver shekels. Saul and the servant arrived just at the right time. God confirms his word to Samuel from the day before the moment he laid eyes on Saul. In verse 15 we read that God informed Samuel directly the day before about Saul. And in the next verse we see that Samuel prepared to receive them. In verse 19 and 20, God proved to Saul that the prophet is a true prophet that knew certain things he could not know unless supernaturally revealed to him. Samuel honored Saul by letting him sit at the seat of honor at the table and serving the special portion of honor and anoint him as king. Samuel speaks to Saul in verse 25 and 27, and again in chapter 10 verse 6 and 9. Saul had a change of heart, and the Spirit of the Lord came upon him in such a way that all who knew him recognized the change in Saul. When you submit to encounter God, you will experience a change of heart too. The Spirit of God will come upon you and change you in a visible way. God will speak and direct you too, out of a relationship with him, just like he did with Samuel. God will bring his purpose for you into existence. God will prepare you for your calling. May you be blessed. Goodbye.